Sometimes you get a phone call from a relative asking if you would have a private conversation about something he is struggling with, maybe difficulty in a marriage or a serious illness. Or you may be a manager in a company and an employee is having trouble with their children, or drinking too much, or needs some vocational guidance. You may be a minister or rabbi and people come to you for counseling, even though you have never had formal training. You contact the therapist in you and offer your care and concern. I define therapy as care of the soul. In this sense, therapy happens in all places all the time. And this is real therapy: caring, helpful, generous listening and responding. It is not the expert probing of a life for meaningful patterns and influential parental figures, say. That's the work of professional therapists, but it can be effective and critically important nonetheless. When I teach therapists, I realize that they are people too. They come to me as a teacher for care of their souls and for deeper and more meaningful ways of doing their work. So I don't see a thick wall between therapist and client. They are both persons trying to make sense of life's intricacies. I usually recommend to therapists that they use friendship as the underlying dynamic of their work. I don't mean they should become literal friends with their clients, but that the spirit underlying the relationship could be friendship. That means that the lay or amateur therapist is really doing therapy of a sort when they listen closely to their friend in distress. The lay therapist has much to learn from the professional, and the professional can learn from the layperson. In this audiobook, I speak to both the professional and the ordinary person. At times, I turn toward one or the other, but overall, I think they can learn from each other, from the spirit and manner of both ways of relating. I write directly for the most part without jargon, but I do think the amateur could benefit from some deeper and more technical exploration of psychological terms, like transference and complex. If you're learning how to be a power user with your computer or smartphone, you have to become acquainted with technical concepts. To do good therapy in the lay sense, it wouldn't hurt to know some psychology. The Platonic Therapist. My background for therapy includes Jungian and archetypal psychology, studies in religions and spiritual traditions, the arts, and even practical philosophy. When I teach therapists, I add to their professional training ideas and skills that are spiritual and philosophical. Therapy is not a new concept. Plato, the Greek philosopher who lived in the 4th century BC, wrote about the soul and often used the word therapy, which he defined as daily care and service. The word psychotherapy literally means soul care. So I suggest letting go of any idea that you have to solve your friends' or your clients' problems, and instead think of therapy as care and service. The caring friend can learn from the professional how to listen, speak, and comport herself. What the therapist learns in her training is relevant to the average person, both for her own life and for helping others. Ordinary people tend to give advice, which is more often about them than the person they want to help. They often fail to separate their own lives and values from the person they are talking to. The amateur can also get caught in powerful emotional complexes and end up keeping the friend stuck in the pattern that has caused him trouble. I'm not suggesting that you pretend to be a professional therapist, but that you dip into your own experience, find some wisdom, and listen closely to what your friend has to say. That is therapy as care of the soul. For almost 20 years, I taught psychiatrists, doctors, social workers, and psychologists who came to the New England Educational Institute on Cape Cod for their required continuing education credits. My purpose was to deepen their perspective through my studies on